Give me a moment. So, Fraser,
just showing me.
how's your day so far?
Good. I've just been after working quite a long time on making a certain gimmick. I've decided to give up today. I tried literally everything to make it practical. This idea, but the good news is I've got a way to do it that uses basic sleight of hand and psychology, and I think that would fit my style more anyway. I was just seeing if I could actually make real something that I'd imagined, and this time I had to give up. So a little bit burnt out today.
And it is very good to have rests whenever we create something, because it's not the idea to have bad times, right? We need to enjoy our explorations.
I've found that I create best when I'm sort of playing and probably not trying to force something too much. Exactly. I mean, it's important, I think, to focus on the problem consciously, but then you kind of I think, like Kenton says, you have to sort of give it up to your subconscious as well, and let the answer sort of pop in. And I found recently I've found myself sort of dreaming of solutions as well.
Dreaming like real dreaming while you sleep?
Yeah, and then I sort of wake up and have sort of an idea, like a kernel of thought, or sometimes it's kind of the concept is there, and then I have to remember it. So it's important for creators that you write things down, I think, because sometimes if I hadn't had something in my notebooks, then the script I'd have to redo the script again and find out, how I made something work. So it's important to write stuff down. I think that's what I realized talking to a good friend. He came to see me recently, Mark Lemon. He's consulted for a few of the top names, and he's mainly into electronics and making things work that way. But we had a good sort of 2 days jamming and talking through things, and that's one of the things that came up was whenever you have an idea, you need to really record it somewhere. It doesn't always stay in there.
It's very important to have notebooks everywhere, as you said.
That's it.
At the side of
if you can read your own writing, because mine's terrible.
Me too. I can show you, and I understand the half of it. but
I mean, I tend to write in primarily I'll write in a word processor, because a lot of what I do is script based. It means that I can just play with the script as I go, and it's almost like I'm chiseling away at the most elegant and simplified way to do something. And it really helps to have the script there that I can just modify as I go. So that's another thing that I found helps me creating.
And so you feel your work is based in the script that you create. The script is not just a dramatic tool that you add, but it's part of what you create.
I mean, the theatrical aspects, I always think I can sort of add in later, but when I'm creating, it's usually I usually try to keep it as simplified as possible, the script, so that I can see it in its bare bones. Certain things will be included, such as like certain justifications and something that's known as the reframe, which my good friend Ross Taylor discovered when we was first coming up with a name guess that was propless, and so you need to make sure that the components are there. But it's really like, I think it's really just like looking at structuring and stuff like that. And one thing that I try to do, and I think I've sort of become known for now, is creating mentalism that the method and the effect run along parallel lines. So it's hard to tell where one begins and one ends, so it all just ends up being the presentation. And this is really nice, because all you really have then is the theatrics of the piece and how it's remembered by everyone. And I've realized with my more recent work how far you can push that. So as long as to the point where it's like childish simplicity, but as long as it feels right and is deceptive, then it flies. And it can be some of the most simplified stuff, really. So that's what's exciting. and it's really just words and creating shifts in perception. So I look at it as instead of sort of doing physical sleight of hand or shifting things in the physical, I'm really shifting things in people's minds.
Exactly.
And changing how they perceive what's happening.
Yeah.
So essentially, I'm creating the illusion of magic, or what looks like real magic, out of very little, other than how they perceive what's happening and how they imagine what's happening.
Basically, it's a spell,
So
right?
For me, that's
A magic spell works like that because the beliefs and the context allows the spell to be real and to create healing and to create curses, and in your case, create a mentalism experience based in words, right?
Yeah, that's it. It's really how it looks, you know.
And in a way, how it works.
For me, it's closest. It's closest to real magic for me because it is in that realm of the mind and to do with perception. Because really, all you're doing is, you know, with any magic is convincing someone that convincing them of the appearance. You know, whether the method is hidden in a physical sense with sleight of hand and misdirection, or whether it exists in words and how those words have shifted their perception and how you outwardly act as well. A lot of the time, you know, you're basically lying to people, but you convince them of it, which is interesting. Another thing as well, it doesn't mean that I don't always, you know, use classic methods or, you know, like billet peaks, as long as the psychology is right and the justification. And as well as that, this new thing that I've just released is a peak that allows you to get a full playing card peak, but it's the psychology that's important, and it's the structure and the order that the components allow you to do it in. You know, it's the structure's the most important part, where you end up with a peak that happens in plain sight, but it's completely hidden because there's no heat on that because of the structure and the psychology.
Exactly.
So even though I will use basic slides, I still approach magic in a sense of working smarter rather than harder. And just for my own sort of reasons, it's strange because, you know, I can do sleight of hand, but if I can take out a move and do it with psychology, then I will do, because for me that just feels closer to the ideal that I'm going for.
Sure. Yeah, you know? and you enjoy the best. And I think that the concept of basic sleight of hand or expert sleight of hand is kind of nonsense, because at the end of the day, in my perspective of mentalism, people don't need to even perceive that something happens. So people doesn't know if we use any quote unquote basic or expert or difficult path, whatever. So they are just tools. And if we find a tool that allows us to create that path, why not using a simple, quote-unquote, basic one?
Exactly, right. And I think that all of the greats knew this. You know, all of the past masters, they wouldn't necessarily do sleight of hand for the sake of it. If they could, you know, for instance, like instead of doing a pass and of a half a deck of cards and misdirecting away from that move so that they're looking at you, or you gesture, or you speak to the audience member, and then the move happens away from their awareness in that sense, you can direct them into the move sometimes, you know. Like a lot of Danny Doherty's stuff is beautiful because it's so elegant.
Exactly.
He'll just split the deck as he gestures to one person and put it back together as he gestures on the other side of the table. And for me, if you can hide it in that naturalness, then that's better. That's a better deception because it's not something tight that has to be hidden.
Exactly.
You know?
For some time, I start to use the concept of camouflage. I think that in that context, using the frame that I am camouflaging some actions is far more powerful because I am doing them. But for the outer reality of my performance, that action means something. So yes, I am doing something to acquire something for my own method, for the reality that I am experiencing, but they also have a meaning for that action, right? So it's camouflaging, it's not hiding.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, because now all that you're left with is the outward appearance of what should be taking place anyway.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful, because now you're closer, in my mind, to the perfect effect or the pure effect. You know, whether there's a move there or not. You know, I'll do things as bold as like for instance, there's one effect where, it requires, if you know like the Hoff sins are cool, then yeah, you can do that because it doesn't seem like there's much leakage as the bigger action of moving your hands down from a spread deck comes down. But actually, you could just as well get away with it by just dead cutting, as long as you're now talking to the spectator.
Exactly.
And because that, I think, feels more natural because of its simplicity to me, I'll get away with that a lot more than trying to do this move.
And for sure, another type of magician or a sleight of hand expert, if anyone wants to call like that, if he enjoys doing that more difficult slide and he does it well, and even the audience can appreciate the beauty of that artifact, of that movement, and it is part of his
Well,
job.
they should miss it, shouldn't they?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, for me, they should miss it completely, which is good.
Yeah. It's the decision of every person.
So perhaps it might sound to certain people like I'm being lazy, because a magician's job potentially would be to not have any guilt about that and to portray outwardly that nothing's happening whilst it is happening. But if I can simplify that, and it might just be the way I set something up, like with my wording, or like for instance, instead of like I might need to sort of risk kill the deck to turn it end for end, right? I mean, there's this beautiful any card any number method, and something that my friend Peter Turner added to it. It's not my method to get into, but I can talk about this part. Essentially, there's a moment where the deck has to be turned over and placed on the table, right? And this just sort of happens outside of people's awareness. But what Pete added to it was he would hand the deck to the spectator and break proceedings, so there's like a natural time misdirection, and then because their other hand is busy counting cards, it would then say, "Oh, just place it on the table." And now the spectator naturally risk kills and does the move for you, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, to put it into someone else's hand is like incredible.
Yeah, exactly. Peter is genius.
So yeah, I think it's working smarter rather than harder, and psychology allows you to do that. Wording and the script, but how you outwardly portray things as well. I mean, you're effectively lying to people, but it's just doing it in the most succinct and elegant and simplified manner. I think, and that's the sort of stuff that turns me on. I mean, I don't know. My philosophy is quite different, and it started off when I first got into magic. I wasn't really happy with how I found a lot of the methods. Like, I don't know whether I imagined that actual real magic was there. But I'd be reading like the Mark Wilson course of magic, thinking, "Oh, I'm going to be able to learn something," and then you turn the page, and then the disappointing secrets there.
You found like hands like that, and
and I mean, I've had like a deck of cards before and tried to take all of the moves out of it to the point where I had nothing. I was just looking at the deck and thinking, I'm in real trouble here, because I want to be a magician, but I don't want to do any sleight of hand. And then luckily I found my own ways into the art and how to do things that fit me and the way I think magic should be done. From my point of view. So yeah, I suppose it becomes an artistic endeavor at that point. Just one of the aspects of creating
that exploration, the inner exploration of which methods, which approach I use, but also the outer study and exploration of what is my styling performance. Everything needs to come from an authentic level, because if I don't enjoy it first, people will not enjoy it. If I don't enjoy doing this verbal technique or using this billet, whatever, I'm not feeling that enthusiasm, that energy that I need to portray, and in the performance.
Well, you don't believe in it. If you don't believe it in yourself, then how can they believe
exactly.
it?
And I met some people that they love mentalism, but they don't like to perform really. They like to learn about methods, to see new developments. And some people ask me, what can I do if I don't enjoy perform? And obviously depends of the situations, but maybe that person is not his mission is not to perform, and is fine, right? Some people are in mentalism to learn to contribute in other ways, and other persons are performers, and it's fine. You know, we need everyone. We need everyone.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of took a step back from doing a lot of shows, which is something that I want to get back to. I'm thinking of writing more of a intimate sort of like a psychic entertainment show,
Nice.
but really intimate. So that's something that I want to do in the new year.
Nice.
But yeah, I took a seat really because I was so busy creating, essentially. But I feel like I'm not gonna be happy with the way like a lot of things are done. Like there's certain friends' work that I'll use, you know, Peter Turner, Michael Murray, and a few others and that sort of material turns me on. Because that sort of fits my ideals, you know, and what I'm working towards, then I'll do that. And for instance, you know, I went out a few weeks ago. So I perform a lot socially, you know, and I went out and I had no cards on me. I was speaking to this couple, and you know, after about an hour of talking about not all about me, but you know, they sort of asked me what I did and stuff like that, and I kind of, you know, just left it to not force any performance. They said, "Well, can you show us something?" And I thought, well, I can do. I didn't have a deck of cards, and normally, I suppose that can be a crux sometimes, you know, because it's kind of like I know that I can start off in a solid way and sort of always go back to that if I needed to. But I just went on for about 40 minutes with just propless material. You know, I did some of Pete's, some of my own stuff. You know, like they were guessing, I guess, star signs, names that people that were just on the mind recently. They guessed my PIN number, you know, and a few other bits. And it was really interesting because, you know, you get this argument that like propless isn't reliable. But I did it for 40 minutes and it was probably the most realistic sort of, it felt different to them, I think, you know. And then a few weeks, I think a few days after that, again, because I just hadn't got around to ordering any decks of cards, I was again in that position. So I went on for 20 minutes that time. And the person who saw it right at the end, he sort of goes, well, you know, I love magic. I've seen stuff on TV, but this, I love what you're doing. This feels different. It's to do with the mind, you know, and they could feel the difference. So for me, I perform in a realistic manner. Like for me, I kind of used to worry about when I got into magic being believable, and now you would have to convince people that you're not real, you know.
Exactly.
And I think there's something really interesting how that came about. I think it was just confidence, which came from performing, and maybe it's like the silent script, because my attitude towards magic is that it's really about creating what appears real, and there's no real feeling that I'm doing tricks in my mind. Even though I'm honest with people, if they ask, I say, yeah, there's trickery involved. It's a real hard thing to explain how I've become this credible person, but maybe it's the character more than the actual material. I don't know.
Exactly.
But I think they definitely feel the difference between the propless stuff and, you know, if I was to get like a...
I think that more like the classic debate of prop-based mentalism is, as you said, is the charisma, is the confidence, is the secureness that people can feel with you. It doesn't matter if you have a piece of paper, if you have a book, whatever. The audience wants to feel secure with the performer. And if the guy,
that's true.
Yeah, if the guy is mediocre, of the girl, if the performer is mediocre, and maybe he has the best book test, he has the best propless work, whatever, but he's just being weak and whatever, people will not
then
care.
They'll feel it.
Yeah. People feel that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So
I think that's right. Yeah. So whatever the material, you know, you could use billets, and as long as you're performing outwardly correctly, then it'll be just as believable as propless. You know, I just personally wanted, in a creative sense, to push mentalism into realms that it hasn't been before, and as far as I can push it.
Exactly.
And that was just my personal, what I wanted to do. It doesn't mean that I always use prop lists.
Exactly.
You know, for example, I talk about in my writings that, and some of the limited books, that it's not to, you're not supposed to like perform a whole set of this stuff. You know, you might put one or two things in, and then if something misses, you carry on with more traditional stuff, like that might feel more solid to people, even though that can fail as well. Like,
Of
not
course.
right in the bullet.
Everything can be solid.
Yeah, but I did actually, you know, not to prove a point to myself, just because I literally had no props on me, went on for 40 minutes and then the next time 20, 30 minutes and got by. And I realised I could actually probably just walk into a show with nothing. And, you know, with the aesthetic that I'm going for, even a small amount of failure, I will build failure in if I'm too clean anyway. So,
exactly.
You know.
And that psychology or inverse psychology of, if this is a trick, why he's start to not failing per se, but he needs to adjust, and adjusting is part of any conversation, right? So if we create a too perfect performance, and it's clear that you have everything prepared and you don't have moments of improvisation, right? In readings, for example,
it has to be a trick.
Exactly. So, for example, readings for me are fantastic because it's a clear example of powerful improvisation. You need to see the cards, you need to see the oracle, you need to see anything that you're using, but then you need to be connected with the experience. And you really need to be there. And sometimes when we work methods on where we read ad copies, they say 100% successful. And I think to myself, how boring. Because if everything is so prepared, why I need to care as a performer to create that piece? I like the challenge to be there, right?
Yeah. The way I looked at this a few years back, I think I was having a conversation at a convention, was that, okay, if I'm truly just going to go out and portray a magician, right? If that's all, if that's essentially what I'm doing, because the tricks are sorted, they're solid, everything, you know, so you get a piece of information and now it's all about the presentation, right? So if that's the case, then you may as well be an actor. As you know, you may as, for me, that's as satisfying as, okay, I've just got a role playing a magician in a film, and that's what I'm doing. Whereas I wanted the method to be interwoven with effect, so that actually I'm going out and the two are so well entwined. I'm approaching real magic in terms of a method. It's real hard to explain, but the last thing I would want to do, for instance, is walk around and have to have a jacket on because I've got IT thread, I've got, you know, billet indexes, multiple outs, all this. The more I do that, the less I feel like a magician,
I think that you have it in a very clear idea. You are not an actor, and some people who dress like a magician in terms that they have a jacket and they have all the gimmicks. Again, it's fine. Everyone has their own.
They're propping themselves up. Yeah, I mean, it's not right or wrong. I mean, there's a time and place for everything. You know, like if you want to be a comedy magician, then do that. You know, I actually said to my friend when he came down, I said, well, maybe I should just like have some fun with it and not worry about it, not bother myself with trying to find my way of doing it. Just learn some tricks, impress people, and have fun with it. You know, maybe like I could lighten up, but then that's not what turns me on. So it's not right or wrong. It's just, but I think there is like there kind of is a middle level there, or what I think of as a hidden curriculum that the greats knew, is that psychology definitely needs to come into it. Like it might be a case of, if you're doing cups and balls type situation, you know, it might be where you just look under the ball and there's nothing there, but you imagine that it's there. And that's such a small moment that you haven't brought attention to, but indirectly people know that there's a ball there now, you know? So stuff like that, I think all the greats knew how to properly construct something in a theatrical sense, that it came across as the presented magic, as close to real as you can get. Whether you do sleight of hand or anything like that. But the other thing is, you know, like for instance, if I had to carry this coat and like, I just wouldn't feel like a magician. Like, it's probably different if I did, like, on stage, for instance, or this idea that I've got for a more intimate setting. You know, I might have a electronic board built into the table. But so that won't bother me, because they literally just have one sheet of paper now, write in a marker pen, and it goes in an envelope or whatever. You know, that's okay to me. It's really weird what's okay and what isn't. Like, for instance, pocket writing. I would never want to have to put my hands in my pocket and attach something to my thumb or pick up a small pencil. For me, that's horrible. Like, everything I hate about magic, I found on this beginner's magic book. You know, there was thimbles, silk, cards that looked slightly warped, and it was just like, my God, is that what
I don't want to be that
do, or magicians? You know, so that was that. So, for instance, for the pocket writing thing, I actually created a solution. So I think I can tip this, actually, because it was a bonus piece. So the way I got around that was, I decided, okay, I'm gonna hide the writing in plain sight. So now I don't have to be hidden in my pocket, and everything's cool. So what I did is, let's say I've got, you know, a billet that's folded into quarters. I would have a prediction written on it. So let's say it's like a playing card, like, you know, I'd want to force a playing card, for instance, right? So that's hidden in my hand, ready to go, right? And what I'd do is I would write something I'd learned from the group. So let's say I've been performing for 5-10 minutes, and I might sort of write really short things, such as blue shirt, Taurus, because I know their star sign now, maybe the first letter of the name, something like that, right? I would fold this up, but this is under the disguise of writing the prediction that comes next. And now, just to keep things completely simple, I would literally just do a false take billet switch. So I might get the order slightly wrong here, but hopefully people be able to piece this together. Because my head's just, like, recently I've been all over the place, like, with creating stuff. And okay, so that's what you do.
So you switch
the billet with predictions here, right? That's hidden. You write down a few key points, fold this, and then you just do the
switch.
False take, so that this comes into view. And for me, that's elegant, that's beautiful, because literally, as one moves away, the other one in a natural motion brings this to display. So it's essential that this is kept safe, and I can't go back to it. So I want you to just hold on to this in your fist, and then you take the pen and you put the pen away in the left pocket and ditch the billet at the same time. So now that's allowed me to write what you would do with your pocket writing anyway, in plain sight. I do the trick, that's revealed, and there we go, we're good. So now at the end of the performance, I can say, do you know what's interesting? Sometimes before a show, a few impressions just hit me, and I just tend to grab whatever pen's around at the time and just scribble down. And actually place this in my pocket before I came to the show. And I think that, speaking to you now, I think there's a reason I wrote this. I think this is relevant to you, and then you take this out and hand it off. So now it's got their star sign, the first letter of the name, whatever else you want to do. So that was my solution. But there was another beautiful thing, and the psychology there is great, right? But the other nice throw off is something that Kenton published in the mind reading lessons that we helped contribute towards, and it's older than Kenton. But essentially, sort of changing the barrel on felt tip pens,
the caps,
or Sharpies. So now it's in a different coloured writing to what I apparently wrote that prediction down in anyway, which is a nice disconnect and throw off. So there we go. Just by changing the structure slightly, I don't have to go to my pocket now and start fumbling around.
I think that the way that you phrase the prediction is important, because sometimes we have the tendency to think that better is more powerful. More detail.
You should hint at
Yeah, yeah. And as you said, the first letter of the word, the zodiac sign, the color of something, you know, and maybe the color can be very ambiguous. I sense some green, and maybe the guy say, "Oh,
I would do something specific
yeah,
to that person in front of you, because it's almost like you knew this before the show."
exactly.
And even if you had quickly written blue shirt, I'm going to do this with them.
Yeah.
You couldn't have known that star sign ahead of time,
Exactly.
so it all just sort of...
Yeah, so less is more. One more time, the principle of minimalism, particularly whenever a mentalist wants to create credibility and a real experience, and that people really feel that someone read their mind or predict something or use energy or anything that we want to create. We need to be subtle, because in that subtlety, people will need to project, we need to imagine, and that gaps that we leave,
they fill in the gaps.
They fill the gaps, and they create something even more impactful, even more powerful, that we try to do that powerful, right?
Yeah. I think Greg Ars has something called the 3 degrees of separation. But essentially, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this, but it was like a small bit that is given to other people in the past, is to take so many steps away from the reveal. So that the audience have to, like in a one-ahead or something like that, because you've already got a strong hit somewhere else, they can then, you throw that off and go, no, it's just sort of an impression. But now they have to make it fit. They think, well no, actually, that colour and that time of year would mean this. So I think you were close anyway.
Do you remember a Kenton piece that he did in a video, I think, and where he used a drawings? He did like a routine that you said, and he used a beautiful way in which drawings can be associated with different memories, and it's beautiful. I have it in my casual repertoire, and it works great.
Yeah, I remember that. Was that with like the boats?
Yeah.
And money.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and
you get
drawings,
a lot out of it.
Drawings that have that inner ambiguity, right? And we can use drawings, and I know that you have a lot of work with drawing duplication, and that allows us to see the drawing as a symbol, but also as a concrete thought. So we have a lot of possibilities in there.
Yeah, and it engages their imagination again. I think it's another chance, if you want to do it in this sense, is to get them to reproduce the drawing so you can make it play bigger. I think it lends itself nicely to pre-show as well, drawings. Like certain times, in close-up, if I might get information, it might be propless, it might be whatever, and I can hold off revealing that, like something that I haven't tried, which I thought would be quite an interesting idea, would be, if I'm doing close-up and I'm going table to table, I say something like, I wouldn't normally do this, but I'm not quite sure this last thought that you've got, so I'm going to come back to that. So at the end of the show, and then you give them the time, like 10 minutes before, I want you to make your way to this corner of the room or whatever, right? So you do this with everyone on each table. And the nice thing is now is you've got like a Q&A, because all you do is you've just stolen one piece of pre-show off everybody, from each table, and it's always a additional billet, where you it's information that the audience aren't aware that they've written down as an additional hit. So I haven't quite worked the wording out for that yet, but I think it's interesting that you could potentially, just by the way you structure what you do, end up with seemingly propless Q&A, just throwing it out to the group when everyone comes up. You just have to have a nice way of hiding that from the rest of the table, and so that's something that just an idea that I was playing with the other day.
And you have a concept that I think that is called the no pre-show, something like that.
Now show, which is similar to that really. It is you get some information pre-show, you say, you try to get it, or you say, in fact, I think this will be more interesting if, in a moment, if you just come over to me, and by doing this, you'll the thought would have gone into my subconscious mind, and then you'll just bring it back to the conscious mind, and I should be able to get it then. So now what you've essentially done is create like a challenge situation where I'll be performing for a different table, and this girl comes over and goes, "Oh, if you're that good, you should be able to tell me the colour of my underwear."
Yeah.
And you just say pink, screams and go, "Just wait there a second. Just let me finish this really quickly." But there's someone else that's been on your mind recently, and that's the secondary bit.
Yeah.
So now you get like this pure situation, and I realised that that's something that Jim A does on stage. And I went to a lecture, saw him perform it, but he never tipped what he was doing. And so I sort of read between the lines and then thought that I had created a challenge situation when really I kind of stole that by accident from the theatrical sense, from seeing it done theatrically.
Yeah.
And then created my own close-up version of that. So Luke Jemay really should get the credit for creating that challenge situation. And another thing, if you are going to do that, is I wouldn't normally do this, but just for you, I'm going to try to get this now. And that will just stop people straight away going, okay, what colour's my underwear?
Yeah.
And challenging you there and then. So you address that you wouldn't normally do that, So Now Show really was more about, it wasn't really about creating the challenge situation. It was more about how to hide things and pieces of the jigsaw puzzle across the room.
Yeah.
And I've got any card at any number that does that as well, So each perspective comes together, but because they haven't got everyone else's piece of the jigsaw, they both get an effect, and then the audience at large get the greater effect, and it's kind of dual reality, but everyone goes away impressed. So I think the thing I'm trying to get across is kind of how to structure things and how to use psychology and words to your advantage, because you can simplify things,
But again,
just
for some people,
instructions.
For some people is too complex to approach performance in a way that they need to trust maybe too much for them in their own charisma, right? Because some people want to be hidden with the deck of cards. They want to hide behind the impression pad. So I think that for the methods that you propose, that I love them, people really need to understand that first is the performer, and then is the verbal technique. Because, as you said, it's the charisma, is the presence that you bring into the performance. If not, if you don't have that management, well, you can use the more classic methods, but even they can combine.
Even then,
in a combination.
Even then, the traditional classic advice for billets is, write in the middle, bold, so that if we need to show everyone, they'll be able to see it. And even then, that can fail. They can just scribble down, or they might leave it off. Like I had one guy in a wedding. This girl, I'd like blown her mind, and she was like, told the boyfriend I was psychic, and that was it. So at the end, he goes, "Oh, you need to show me something." So I used a billet. And he hadn't written anything, so I just went into Rose, which is one of my properest name guesses, and nailed it. And I go, and be honest with me, because you're quite skeptical, you actually didn't write anything, and that impressed him like twice. Because it was like, oh my God. So even so really the thing with props is, I always make sure that when I'm scripting and creating these pieces, that you can easily follow along, right? Because I understand that spectators need to have instructions broken down and then know where they are before the next instruction comes in. So that that's just the way this stuff needs to be done. And because I'm so used to scripting now, I can make sure my effects do that. Another thing is to make sure that they are listening to you. So you might need to bring their attention back, or make sure you hold their attention by looking in the eye. You might touch them on the hand. To bring their attention back. You might actually say, just look at me for a second, pause, and then give the next line. So this for me is the same as learning a sleight and making sure that the sleight happens at the point of misdirection.
Exactly.
It's just as worthwhile as anything else. Like I think Peter Turner called it Mentalism on one of his DVDs and download projects. The Devil in Disguise 2, because it's psychomechanical mentalism, because it's not what it used to be. Like me and a few friends have pushed it forwards now, So it's not the Martin Gardner grey elephants in Denmark. It's not that. It's not, you know, times by this, add this, when it doesn't have any context or make sense. And, you know, and it's not just pipe dreams. It's things that, I mean, people, when they go out with me, they see me nailing things and, you know, genuinely scaring like the public because it's so clean. And when I go on Skype, I probably go on for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, jamming things. And then you see people's comments afterwards, you know, he guessed this, this, and this. And that's over Skype. So I know that I'm comfortable with the material. And I get that people probably need to see it done. So that's something that, you know, I was supposed to film each effect from the Book of Angels. And it's something that, you know, I decided I would try and get done within the year, because other things took over. But I do get why people think they need those videos, because they want to see the timing and stuff like this. But really, what I would suggest doing is imagine yourself saying it, imagine how it appears to the spectator, and imagine how it would look if he was doing it for real, and everything was done in an actual sense. And then really it's just confidence, believing that it's going to work so you don't sabotage yourself, and making sure that you're clear with your instructions and keep their attention. And then really you'll find that you'll start hitting. And get used to it not mattering if you do miss as well, you know. So there's no real difficulty with it.
It's another approach, right? Another approach to practice, to rehearse your moves, you know, because as you said, it's not a pinky break, but it is it's another type of move that you need to master. You need to do it in a rhythmically manner, in a paced manner during the performance.
But for instance, it's a case of, so now I want you to just jump to the next letter of the alphabet. So it's delivering that line so that the only thing it can possibly mean in that moment is exactly those instructions. What's interesting is when I perform to magicians a lot of the times in conventions and stuff, they tend to fall on the side of illusion. So they don't follow the instruction to begin with, and then I reframe what's happened so that they are fooled by the illusion. They tend to fall down onto the side of illusion straight away. And I think that's because they imagine that it is possible, you know, to actually do what I'm portraying to do. So that's interesting. I jam with magicians, but a lot of the time it tends to fall into me sort of explaining as I go, you know, at conventions. And it's just a real interesting thing that happens with magicians. And I think we're used to being the other side of the trick as well. So they either try to work it out or they don't just follow along how a spectator would. But then a case in point, like, you know, I tried something with the 2 magicians in a row at a convention, and then one of my friend's girlfriends who I'd just met for the first time sat down, and I nailed 3 pieces in a row with her that wasn't working with a few of the magicians. So it was like a real interesting thing, that. But anyway, to get back to my point, it's I can't remember my point now. I've lost it. It was what was I saying? Basically, being natural, I suppose. That's it. So being really specific with your instructions, right? So there's certain things that I build in as well. Like, you know, you might think, well, what if they speak at that point or aren't sure? So you say, so it's essentially you don't say anything until I ask you specifically, because I don't want to know your thought processes. That's openly fair, but it smoops them. So now they have to think, well, I'm just going to do the most obvious thing, which is now just jump to the next letter of the alphabet. Because the word now's there as well, it breaks whatever they was doing before. So now it's a separate instruction. So all of this is like inherent in the scripting and is worked out as scripting for the method to work, because my method is in the words and the shifts in perception. So that's what people need to understand, is that everything is there for a reason. You might say it differently, but the structure of the language is what's important.
And if anyone doesn't feel safe, well, at least they are exploring other ways to approach mentalism. And I see your work because you have a lot of different approaches, for example, for zodiac sign revelations, right? And some people,
can't believe.
I found funny that sometimes people say, "Oh, another one," and whenever I saw that you have another one, I say, "Nice, another one," because it's all about that. It's all
because
about
I'm exploring.
explorations, right? It's all about new
Yeah, and I'm
ways.
usually that's right, and usually that's a convenient vehicle for a certain set of principles that I'm sharing.
Yeah,
So, there might be 12 of them, but they each have a different way to get there,
yeah,
or share a principle that you might apply to other things.
yeah,
That's just kind of my vehicle.
yeah,
So, and that's one of the things, like Sonder, my latest limited edition, it's not out till January. Of course, there's a star sign guess in there, and I think it's probably the cleanest, purest one, right? Even though I've said in the past, okay, this is my ultimate, because I haven't just settled for an ultimate, and these other principles have come about.
yeah,
It means that with retrospect, I can actually apply these to certain other things that I've done in the past, and you just slowly refine.
yeah,
But it doesn't mean that the earlier books are redundant, because you might apply that way of doing it to something else.
yeah,
There's still principles in each of the books, which is important. So it's not like I just keep on making my previous work obsolete. I don't believe that I do that.
yeah.
I think it's just a continued exploration, like
Exactly.
you say.
Yeah,
So yeah, in Sonder, I literally this is how clean it is now. I literally just start speaking about characteristics and traits, and perform in like a readings context, and I can guess the star sign, within like 20 seconds.
nice.
It's ridiculously clean, and I'll probably show you it when we stop going live,
Sure.
because the whole point of this book is to explore this one principle, you see, which allows you to obtain information whilst in a readings context, and it really feels like you do nothing and could know nothing,
Nice.
which is great, and for me that's even closer again to sort of this ideal that maybe I'll never reach,
Yeah,
but it's something that I'm always going to push towards
yeah,
and try
yeah,
to work
yeah.
out.
Yes, Salvador Dali said, "Don't have fear to perfection; you will never reach it." And
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
constant motivation for new creativity. If not, we are fine with all the books, with all the things that we have, right? With the classics, we
yeah,
can do
yeah,
acts, we can do shows for the rest of our lives. But why? If we have creative potential, we can explore new
yeah.
ways. Why not? Right?
Well, that's what turns me on. That's the reason I get up in the morning. If I didn't have this, I mean, I used to be in art. My background is in art, and I was supposed to go into fine art, but I couldn't do it at the time. And and so I'm glad that my creativity comes out in magic now.
Yeah,
It's kind of that's something that I would always have to do, is be creative.
yeah,
I think someone just asked where they can get the book. The Sonder with the readings applications to mind reading is it can be found on my website. But the best thing to do, because they're watching this on Facebook, is to go to my wall and to look through the posts, because the most recent products are linked in there somewhere.
yeah,
Because each of my pages has like a landing page, but it isn't listed on the main site, because I kind of keep it hidden and less people find the links and stuff like that.
yeah.
So the best way is just go through that. The other thing that's available now is called the Book of the Fallen, which was a sequel to the Book of Angels, which is actually sold out, and that's got some nice stuff in, drawing duplications. It's got my propless witch hand, which I'm really proud of. It's kind of, for me, it's one of the best things I've created.
Nice.
It's just so natural and yeah, I better not say that actually. There was I was going to tip something there that I put in for people to find, but I'm not going to give them too much of a clue. Else, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
forget that.
Better.
But yeah, there's real nice work in that, and but Sonder, the one that's specific to how to use the context of giving readings to get solid pieces of information, that's on pre-order at the moment. So yeah, things such as memories, pin codes, star signs, drawings, names. I haven't listed all of the things that may or may not go in it yet, but it's really hopefully just going to be an exploration of the principle, and how to apply it to different
Nice.
pieces of information.
Nice.
Um,
So
so
that
yeah, so
book
that's
will
cool.
be limited release as well?
Yeah, it's limited to 100 copies. I normally limit it to 200, but because this is so, I feel like it's the next step, you know,
Nice.
in towards uh, as close to it as we can get.
Yeah.
I think,
Nice.
because I
Nice.
literally am just going to sit there and just appear like a psychic reader and know specific information
Fantastic.
that I'm given along the way.
Yeah, we
It's
need
real
to talk
cool.
about that after we end this.
Yeah, I'll show you the star sign.
Yeah.
It's sick. It's like I've had magicians say, "Well, how would that help you?" It's like, really? And I tell them the
Yeah.
principle, and they know the principle.
Yeah.
They just, it's an old principle that they've just not applied in that way.
Nice.
You know, so that's cool. And yeah. So a lot of my work, for those who don't know me, is propolis. That's what I aim towards, is being able to do it literally with words and shifts in perception. And we've got so many tools now in our toolkit. It seems that creating this year has felt a lot more effortless than before, and things have just flowed out of me, which is probably, people have noticed that I've released a lot more material this year, and it's just because it's literally just flowed, and things have been finished in my notebooks that I've just gone back to.
Yeah.
And I think it's a case of, I think because we've got so many tools now amongst us, you know, like Pete Turner, Michael Murray, you know, and yourself, and a few others. We've got this toolkit now, which just allows the creative process to be more informed, I think. And perhaps I'm just in a better place mentally as well than I ever have been. So it's felt a lot. It's felt like it's come quite easy recently.
Stay there. Stay there.
Yeah. I'll try to. Yeah.
Okay, Fraser. So
as long as I'm not messing around with gimmicks.
Before we wrap up this conversation, any single idea or any thought that you want to share with our community?
Yeah, I can show you something that I tipped in another interview. And obviously with the connection, this might not be as accurate as you can make this in real life. And I haven't got a deck of cards, so we'll just jazz this.
Yeah, sure.
So what I want you to do is just get a number in mind from 0 to 9.
Okay.
Okay. And in a moment, because I struggle to just get a piece of information when they're just in isolation, I'm going to have you think about the numbers, so that different numbers, so that we've got a context for this. So in a moment, all I want you to do, every time I snap my fingers, I want you to just jump to the next number in your mind. So we're going to use the numbers from 0 to 9.
Yeah.
And the reason I would use 0 to 9 is because I've got applications for a pin number with this as well. So whenever you get bored or run out of numbers, then I want you to just give me a clear yes out loud.
Okay.
But just so we're starting off in a random place, start off on that number you were just focusing on.
Okay.
Okay. So change.
Okay.
Okay, so keep doing the exact same thing you were just doing. Just keep changing these numbers at random every time I snap my fingers. Just keep jumping randomly. Because I don't think you've gone through all the numbers. And don't worry if you repeat a few. Okay, good. So now I've got a sense of what these numbers sound like in your head. Just go back to the number you were focusing on originally, just so I've got a comparison here. Good. So I may have miscounted this, but this is a even number?
Yeah.
What number are you on?
4.
Good.
Nice.
So that's a nice, quick, elegant way to get a number. And what's beautiful is the reframe principle there, where it kind of, it's not like you do something and then just lie about it and try to reframe after.
Yeah.
It's within the motion of the performance.
Yeah.
So you know, they say yes, and you go, okay, so keep doing the exact same thing you were just doing.
Exactly.
Keep changing these at random.
Yeah.
And now they secretly think to themselves, oh no, I wasn't meant to go in sequential order. But he doesn't know that, so he couldn't have been following along.
Yeah. You mold the reality in a subtle, in a fine manner, and then the end result is very disconnected with the process that you ask me actually. Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah. So, and it should, if you just insert that in with other things, it should, like for me, mentalism is really about matching information.
Yeah.
So as long as the match happens and it's deceptive and flies by
Yeah.
them and everything feels right,
Yeah.
then it is right,
Yeah.
you know. But that's going to look like I'm actually doing something that a real mentalist would do, or a real someone who can really look into your mind.
Yeah.
And just real quick to add to that, if people wanted to do that with a playing card, I've got a one-way force deck, so I'll try and do this anyway. So let's say your number was 2, right?
Yeah.
That I'd got to.
Yeah.
So just I need you to just name a suit for me.
Spades.
Okay. In fact, I should have took this card out before I got you to think of a suit. So you said hearts, right? In fact, whatever suit you just thought of, just change to a completely different suit in your mind, and put that with the number. So this was the number 2.
Okay.
And what'll this is cool, right? So are you happy that I've only committed to this full card once all of the elements came together? So what card are you focusing on?
Right now, the 2 of diamonds.
Good. But what'll really boggle your mind is the fact that I knew that you would always end up on the 2 of diamonds.
Yeah, nice.
Because they're all the 2 of diamonds.
Very good, very good.
So I wouldn't do that with a force deck.
Yeah,
I've got no cards.
Just for us. Nice.
Well, so yeah, so now you should be able to just really quickly, seemingly predict a card.
Nice.
With these techniques.
Yeah. Okay, Fraser, thank you for your time. Thanks for your all the ideas. So for everyone who is watching this, stay in touch with the Mentalism conversation community, with Mentalism Center. Also, your site, Fraser. What is your site?
Yeah, the best way, like I said, is to go to my wall, because you'll see the specific links that you need.
Yeah.
Because my website's a little bit unorganized in terms of I'm building it at the moment, but you can find the direct links.
Yeah.
And also add me as a friend and talk to me.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the best way to reach me. Really, is Facebook.
Yeah.
As well as email. Fraser Parker, FRASER Parker1 at Hotmail. Can check my wall out, because that's where you'll find the latest stuff. Yeah. Essentially.
Yeah. So again, thanks for your time, Fraser, and see you soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. See you.